Hey, my feel good friend, and welcome back to the Feel Good Social podcast. I'm your host, Kinsey, and you know what I'm gonna say. Thank you so much for inviting me into your earbuds this week. I love it. Every week you invite me into those earbuds, or maybe you listen to me out loud. I don't know. Either way, I'm so glad you're tuning in. Thank you so much for joining us, my friend. And in today's episode, we're talking all about how you can create content that your ideal customers actually pay attention to. And I'm probably going to geek out in this episode. Let's be honest here, because this is one of my favorite topics to talk about because it's one of those things that's really, really difficult for a lot of us to understand, like as newbies to marketing, as newbies to content creation and showing up online for a purpose, for our brand. A lot of us just kind of start posting willy-nilly, right? And a lot of us, especially when we're just starting out, we're like, okay, cool. Like I made my Instagram. I'll just start posting and people will come and find me and it's going to be great, right? But what they don't realize is we really do need to be strategic with your content and we need to post on purpose or post with purpose, right? Speaking specifically to your ideal customers so that they actually pay attention, give you a follow, build trust with your brand and decide to buy from you, right? That's what it's all about. And so in today's episode, I'm going to be sharing 6 tips for you to think about as you're creating content so that you're creating content specifically for your ideal customers and they actually pay attention to it, right? You may want to go grab a pen and paper to take some notes on because during these types of episodes, I tend to just dish up all of the things, right? And I've heard from a lot of my listeners that sometimes they take notes during my episodes, which just makes me so happy. So go grab a pen and paper if you want to. And before we dive in, I just want to remind you, if we haven't connected on Instagram yet, I would love to see your face over there, my friend. I'm at Feel Good Social. And if you like this episode, if you want to connect with me, I would absolutely love to connect with you. Just give me a follow. And while you're at it, go ahead and send me a message letting me know that you came from the Feel Good Social podcast, that you listen to this episode. Just introduce yourself real quick. I'm really friendly. I don't bite, I promise. But when you send me a message, I'll be sure to give you a follow back because I love to connect with my listeners over there. And I can't wait to follow along with you as well. And, stalk you, comment on all your posts, all the things. So definitely connect with me over there at Feel Good Social, and send me a message. Just make sure that I know you came from the podcast because I definitely want to give you a follow back. Okay, without further ado, let's dive into these 6 tips for creating content that your ideal customers actually pay attention to. Hey friend, and welcome to the Feel Good Social podcast. I'm your host, Kinsey, and I'm here to help you market your business in a genuine way that works without wasting your precious time. On this show, we chat about social media strategy and mindset tips with a focus on, you guessed it, feeling good. So sit back, relax, and enjoy some genuine conversation for the good of your biz. Do you know what your brand vibe is on Instagram? I have a new fun quiz that's just for you, my friend. I, of all people, know how hard it is to figure out how the heck you're supposed to translate your brand to the gram. And with this quick 7-question quiz, we will help you hone in on your brand's personality, voice, and visuals so that you can show up consistently and create content that looks beautiful and feels on brand for you. This quiz is so awesome. It's been a long time coming, and I know that you're going to have a lot of fun with it. Plus, the results will help you show up in the best way for you. If you'd like to check out our new brand vibe quiz, just head to feelgoodsocial.com/quiz. Pretty easy. Head to feelgoodsocial.com/quiz to find out what your brand's vibe is on social media and start showing up there for your brand. Okay, so before we dive into these 6 tips for making your content something that your customers actually want to pay attention to, I really quickly want to kind of touch on the concept of why this is important, right? And I already kind of talked about it in the intro a little bit, but basically, like a lot of us just, especially if we're new to marketing, especially if we're just building a business, we're new to entrepreneurship, all that different stuff. We think that we can just start showing up online and just posting about whatever, and people will eventually come, right? But here's the thing. We really want to make sure that you understand the strategy, the purpose behind your content and behind your messaging, so that not only will your content perform better and you'll see more success eventually, because like it'll be, attracting the right people, your ideal customers will actually pay attention to you and all that stuff. But we want to make sure that you are attracting the right people to your Instagram following, and not just every Joe Schmo and Bob's uncle around or whatever. I don't know if that's like the phrase I was trying to go for, but long story short, not only do we want to make sure that your content is attracting people, we want to make sure that it's attracting the right people, your ideal customers, right? So it's really important to just understand the strategy and like behind your content and how you're showing up and who you're speaking to, so that you can speak directly to those people, attract those right people, and so that they actually pay attention to your content sticks out in their brains and is memorable for them, so that you build trust with them, and so that you compel them to eventually want to buy from you repeatedly and recommend you to all their friends, right? So today I'm going to be walking you through the 6 things to really think about every time you go to create content, so that your content is something that your ideal customers actually pay attention to and eventually take action on, right? That's why this is so important. Okay, the first tip that I have for you for creating content that your ideal customers actually pay attention to is to always, always, always remember who you're speaking to. Okay. This might be something that you want to like slap on a post-it and like stick to your computer or something like that whenever you go down to like create content, right? But it is so, so easy to, when you sit down at your computer to start typing up a caption, or when you start like brainstorming content ideas and all that stuff, it's so easy to forget specifically who you're speaking to and to start accidentally creating content for your grandma, right? Not necessarily, but like, not everyone is going to care about your vanilla latte or your spaghetti dinner from last night, except for your grandma, maybe, right? So like, or maybe your best friend from college or something like that, right? But like your ideal customers may not find that valuable or interesting or anything like that, unless you relate it to them and your business and your industry and in some way, right? So instead of just posting like a photo of your vanilla latte, maybe you post a photo of your vanilla latte and you pair it with a caption that's talking about how when you just started your business, like you were super into here's a good one. Maybe it's like a vanilla latte from Starbucks and it's like a $7 latte or something. Maybe when you just started your business, you were like dreaming of the day when you could regularly go grab a vanilla latte or something, right? When you felt like you were finally successful enough, or finally like making enough money to like get that treat, that vanilla latte treat or something. And like now you feel like you're there and you've made it and you're reflecting on the past few years and it's just been wonderful. And thank you so much for showing up and following me here. I feel so connected to you. You make this business worth it. And you have allowed me to get my daily treat of a vanilla latte, right? Like that could be relatable for your ideal customer. But if you just post a photo of the vanilla latte, no explanation or anything like that, maybe your best friend from college will be like, oh, look at Kinsey's vanilla latte. You go, girl, right? But your ideal customer will probably just keep scrolling on by because like it doesn't really have anything to do with them, or like they don't care, right? So always remember who you're speaking to. It's also really easy to, there's 2 other easy things to get caught up in, so that you're not speaking to your ideal customer in your content and you're speaking to other people. The first one I find a lot is people speaking to other professionals in their industry instead of to their ideal customer, right? I have found myself in this trap where I create a post that like a fellow social media marketer would find hilarious, right? Or like that, like a fellow social media marketer finds so relatable, right? But like my ideal customers are kind of like, what? Or like, oh, I see this a lot. And I think that, who knows? But sometimes people are like complaining about their clients. Like some social media marketers I see on Instagram create a post that's like, when my client texts me at 10 p.m., asking for whatever, and stuff. And sometimes that can be helpful content to create to like, kind of tell people on Instagram who are following you that's not really acceptable to do to your social media marketer that you work with, right? But, that type of post where you're like creating kind of a relatable meme that's like, when my client texts me at 10 p.m. asking to push out a post and it's like someone rolling their eyes or something, that is more relatable to a fellow social media marketer than like a client. Right. So that's something that I find a lot of people fall into the trap of is like speaking to someone else in the industry. And it makes sense because like we're in the middle of our industry. We are in the daily grind of our business. And like we think that this is relatable, but we forget that, our ideal customer may not find that relatable as much as like someone else who is just like me. Right. Same thing can be said for you can find yourself speaking to yourself. Right? This is very similar to like speaking to someone else in your industry, but it's like, often I do tons and tons of research every week. I listen to so many podcasts. I read so many blogs just about like business in general, about marketing in general, about whatever, right? And sometimes I will find myself wanting to create content that's about some like digital marketing concept that either my ideal customers don't really want to implement or like doesn't make sense for Feel Good Social to be talking about, or like, will kind of just be boring to them, or maybe like go over their head a little bit because it's not really necessary. It's like next level or something like that, right? And then I find myself having to backtrack and not create content around that because I need to remember that I'm Feel Good Social. Feel Good Social media marketing is my topic, and I'm speaking directly to down-to-earth entrepreneurs who are doing the dang thing, who are wearing all the hats, who are just trying to figure out how they can show up on social media and create a content plan of attack that works for them in a way that feels good and gets them results without wasting their precious time or makes them feel like social media is sucking their soul. That is the category, the umbrella under which I create content for Feel Good Social. So I don't necessarily want to be talking about email funnels as much, right? Like, no, even though Kinsey, myself, I do a lot of research on that, right? So that's the first thing that I always want you to remember is remember who you are speaking to, okay? Another aspect of this tip is to remember who you're speaking to in the way you talk about things, right? I say this a lot when I take people through my brand vibe challenge. And we start talking about your brand voice and how you want to show up on Instagram for your brand voice. And I like to say, you don't talk to your dog, you don't talk to your baby, you don't talk to your husband or wife, you don't talk to your parents the same way you would talk to your ideal customer. Right. So always remember to like craft your content and craft your caption from that point of view too. I am speaking to my ideal customer. What kind of story would I tell them and how would I tell it? Right. And we'll come back to that in a little bit. Okay. The second tip is to make your content about them and not as much you. Okay. And this is something that you might hear people talking about, but you're kind of like confused about it. It is kind of a confusing concept, right? Because like you're the one showing up and creating a post for your brand. So like, how can you make your content about them? And then especially if you're like telling a story about your brand or something, and you're like, okay, I'm telling like the story of how I started my business, but like, how do I make that story about my ideal customer? Well, I will try to explain this to you. It is a little confusing for sure. Okay. Basically, we always want to be like putting ourselves in their shoes, lifting them up with our words, with our concepts, with our ideas, speaking to their pain points, challenges, all that different stuff as much as possible. And also inviting them into our stories so that we can be in our stories together instead of feeling like we're speaking to them from a stage, right? So often this can be done with like empathy, right? If you're telling a story, like, have you ever felt like you're standing on a stage in the spotlight and everyone's judging you and might throw tomatoes at you? Like, that's how I feel when I post on social media. Like, not really, but I don't know. I just kind of created that example off the top of my head. I don't know if it landed or not, but basically like asking them, have you ever felt this way? Have you ever struggled with this? Right? Asking a question of them and then leading into a story. Girl, me too. When I first started this business, I was ... or something like that, right? Me too. The other day, I blah, 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 something like that. Inviting them into your story is great. And sprinkling throughout your content different invitations that like continuously invite them back, bring them back, make them remember that you guys are in this together. You're literally like sitting next to each other at a coffee shop and you're telling them a story over coffee instead of speaking to them from like the TED Talk stage or something like that, right? That's how we want your ideal customers to feel with your content. So make it about them and invite them into your story. The other way you make it about them and not you is speaking directly to their pain points, their struggles, all that different stuff. Actually, someone the other day had created a sales page that I kind of reviewed for them and whatnot. And one of their header questions was, are you as excited about this as me? Right. And I was like, this is great. This is kind of inviting them in and all that stuff. But I think more compelling language would be, are you ready to finally dive into this, like finally fix this struggle that you're having or something like that, right? Because the first way that she said that was, are you as excited about this as me? That is great. And that can be great for your social media captions and all the different stuff. But shifting the language around to make it more about them and speaking directly to them and bringing to light their troubles and stuff like that just makes it more compelling, right? So just always remember to do that. Either make it about them as much as possible, speak to their desires, pain points, struggles, whatever it is, their business, right? Their lives. Speak to them about that as much as possible. And, or if you are speaking about yourself or your brand, just make sure that you're inviting them into it so that you're not speaking at them, you're speaking with them. Let me know if that makes sense. I tried my best to explain it. Okay. So first tip, remember who you're speaking to. Second tip, make it about them as much as possible and not as much about you. Third tip, to make sure that your ideal customers actually pay attention to your content, always, always, always give value, value, value. I don't know why. Every time I say this tip, I like have to repeat myself 3 times, right? Because I really need to drive it home. And if you listen to the Feel Good Social podcast episode 115 from 2 weeks ago, you will have like had me talk your ear out about value already. Okay, so I won't go too deep into this tip, but it's something that is super, super important. Your ideal customers have so much content to divide their attention between on Instagram every day. They're just scrolling through an endless stream of content, right? And if they pause on your post and they don't think like, oh, this post isn't for me, or like, I'm not going to get anything out of this post, or like, what are they talking about? Or, like this is boring or something like that, they're not going to pay attention to it, right? So we always need to make sure that in every single piece of our content, we are including some sort of value for your ideal customers to get them to actually pay attention to it, because you ain't going to pay attention to something that has nothing to do with you and that you don't gain anything out of when there are endless opportunities to consume other content online, right? So the 5 categories for value content online are education, entertainment, inspiration, motivation, and relatability. These are my 5 categories. There may be more, who knows? But if you do want to dive deeper into these 5 categories and understand how you can truly give value in your content and make sure that you are at least including value in the form of one of these 5 categories, definitely head back to episode 115 of the Feel Good Social Podcast. I break it down for you with examples and all the things, right? But that is something that you always want to remember, is to make sure that you are giving some sort of value in every single post, because they ain't gonna pay attention if you don't, okay? Real quick, have I invited you to join the Feel Good Social Club yet? Oh man, my friend, I would love for you to check out our new monthly membership for down-to-earth entrepreneurs who are ready to create content with ease, actually show up and strategically market your business online every month, and also make friends with rad down-to-earth entrepreneurs who are just like you, who get it, who are in the posting trenches with you, and who are ever ready to give you a friendly air high five or kick in the accountability booty whenever you need it. The Feel Good Social Club is where it is at. Check it out, feelgoodsocial.com/club. In the club, we have a content library full of Canva templates and tutorials and resources to help you make content creation as easy as possible. We also have monthly content planning workshops where we all come together and talk about the upcoming month's strategy for our content. And we also have community forums where you can get together, ask questions of other club members, brainstorm ideas, ask for feedback. So definitely check it out, feelgoodsocial.com/club. Our Feel Good members are seriously some of the most amazing people that I have ever met. And I would love for you to join us, feelgoodsocial.com/club. Check it out. Join today. We would love to see you in there, my friend. All right, let's dive back into today's episode. Okay, so tip number 1, remember who you're speaking to. Tip number 2, make it about them, not you. Tip number 3, always give value. I won't say value 3 times. And then tip number 4 is to pay attention to your ideal customers for content ideas. Okay. This is one of the most helpful tips when it comes to creating content that's fresh and in the moment that your ideal customers want to pay attention to, right? Because we're in the middle of our businesses and we often get like sucked into all of the swirling things happening around us. And we think that we are creating content about topics that our ideal customers need, right? Or that we think it's what they want and all that different stuff. But often it's not, right? And so one of the best things you can do is simply have conversations with your ideal customers and really pay attention to what they're saying, right? Pay attention to the questions that they're asking. Pay attention to their perspectives on your industry and what they're struggling with and what they need from you. Right? Because often we find ourselves being surprised by what it is. At least I do, right? I am a geek for storytelling, love storytelling so much in marketing, especially, I'm a nerd about it. I absolutely love caption writing. I absolutely love brainstorming content ideas. I love batch planning content, all that different stuff, right? So I tend to go to create content around those specific topics, right? But for example, the other day, I've been hearing, recently, I guess, I've been hearing so many of my Feel Good Social clubbers, so many of just my followers on Instagram complaining about Reels glitching out, right? Like when lately with Instagram, another Instagram eye roll moment, my friend, more often than not, when you go to post a Reel, something goes wrong. Right? Either one of my poor Feel Good Social clubbers posted her Reel the other day, and I was so proud of her because she's not like a regular Reels poster, although she's been doing a really awesome job. And the poor lady's Reel totally turned sideways. Like the video was completely sideways. So it was like a super like stretched out sideways version of like what the vertical video should have been. And it's like, that glitch was so annoying. Sometimes the glitches will be like the text being super like smashed, or I've had a lot of super fuzzy text lately in my Reels. Sometimes your cover doesn't save the way you want it to. One time my text boxes just didn't show up at all. And I was like, what the hell? Like, literally, like when I went to post it, they were there, and then I posted it, and now all the text is gone on top of this reel. Like, what the hell is going on? So anyway, Reels, Instagram glitches are real. They're happening to all of us, all that stuff. Normally I would that's not something I would just create content around, right? Because it's one of those things that's like annoying to me. And I really hate focusing on things that annoy me, because there's not, especially stuff we can't control, right? Like hard things that like we can't really do a lot to control and blah, blah, blah. And like, I would so much rather write a post about content creation and storytelling and caption writing and all the different things I listed before. But I heard a lot of my ideal customers, my Feel Good Social Clubbers, my followers complaining about Reels glitches, talking about Reels glitches, asking about Reels glitches. And so I've decided to create a few pieces of content about Reels glitches. And guess what? They're performing really well because they're super relatable, because people are talking about it, because it's top of mind for them right now, right? So that's what I really want to encourage you to do, is constantly just be aware of, what are my ideal customers talking about, right? How are they feeling about certain things? Do they seem interested in this, right? Are they asking me questions? Do they seem confused about a certain topic, right? And then also, do they have a certain perspective or opinion about a certain topic, right? This is all ways to generate content ideas that is super top of mind and specific for your ideal customers. So I would just keep like a content idea bank and really just train yourself to start paying attention and getting curious. What are my ideal customers talking about right now, asking questions about right now? How can I create content around these topics for them? Because that's one way to guarantee that your ideal customers will want to pay attention to it. Okay, so the fourth tip was pay attention to your ideal customers, what they're talking about for content ideas, right? The fifth tip is to pay attention to your ideal customers, especially the language that they are using to talk about things. Okay, so this is a little bit different than the fourth tip, because the fourth tip is more about the topics and the content ideas that you could generate. This fifth tip is more about how they are talking about things and the specific language and words that they are using. Okay. And this is super, super powerful, my friend, because this is how you get your ideal customers to be like, oh my gosh, Kins gets me, or oh my gosh, she is like speaking to my soul. Oh my gosh, she's speaking my language. This is how you get them to pay attention to you. And you also make them feel seen, heard, loved, and like you get them. Right? If you can use the same language and the same words that they're using and spit that back out to them, then that's how you build brand affinity, right? And they'll pay attention to you more so because they're like, oh yeah, she gets me. I love her, right? So for example, with Feel Good Social, a few words that I use a lot that I've really noticed that people respond to is like eye rolling at Instagram, is kind of a phrase that I use a lot because I've gotten a response from people about that. It's something that I feel it's like an action that's like visual that people can take, right? And I've heard a lot of my ideal customers spitting it back to me and me spitting it back to them. It's like one of our language that we use between us, right? Another word that I have used before is cringy. Like Instagram is kind of cringy, right? Or it makes me feel kind of icky, or like it's sucking my soul. It's wasting my precious time. Like these are all phrases that I use because I've heard my ideal customers use them too. Right? So I pay attention to the specific language that they use, and I use that language too because it's our common language that we can connect over. right? So what does that look like for your ideal customers? If you already know, awesome. But I really want to encourage you to start just paying attention to the words that people use, like when they actually speak to you, when they send you DMs, when they comment on your posts and stuff. Like, not only what are they talking about and how do they feel about it topic wise, but what specific words can you use or phrases do they use that you can use then in your captions later. And it's just really, really magnetic for your ideal customers. Another way to use this too, and I actually had this happen, was chatting about this with my one-on-one coaching client, Tanya, the other day, because sometimes the way we approach topics and the words that we use are more magnetic for our ideal customers than what we would normally talk about. Okay, let me back up. So Tanya is a coach, mindset coach for working moms is kind of her little tagline, right? And she's been really playing around with her topics and how she talks about them lately. And one of the topics that she loves to teach on is values, because values are really the core of who you are as a human. And the more you understand your values, the more you can set goals that actually make sense for you, the more you can prioritize your to-do list, right? The more you can manage your time better. Like, values are kind of the core and the starting place for a lot of these issues that working moms deal with, right? But when she creates content around values, it's kind of a snore fest, if we're honest. Not really. I mean, it still performs okay. You know, Tanya's amazing. But what we have found is one of the things that she teaches on is how to set goals based on your values, right? Goal setting based on your values, how your values play into goal setting, how your values play into your ability to achieve your goals when they can balance each other, right? And what we have found is when she creates content that's around goal setting, forward facing, but then she kind of sneaks it in to be actually about values because that's what she's talking about. But she uses the language of goal setting, and that's how she like titles her reels, right? Like goal setting based on values instead of using her values to set goals. Like, the goal setting forward facing word is sexier for her ideal clients than talking about values, right? So when we create content that's like goal setting is the big shiny like topic, and then she kind of sneaks in value talk in the back end, that performs way better because her ideal customers are way more interested in goal setting. Goal setting is like the sexy word that like they perk up to instead of like values, right? Even though value work is really what they need, and they get led into the value work when she captures their attention with goal setting, right? So hopefully this makes sense. But language is not only magnetic for your ideal customers, but if you can understand which words are their perk up words, right? Like which words are their power words, which words like pique their interest or whatever, then that can really help you to create content in a way that is attractive and magnetic and interesting for your ideal customers more so, right? So that is the fifth tip. Pay attention to the language that your ideal customers are using, and also pay attention to which words they perk up at more so and which topics they perk up at more so, right? Okay, my friend, the final tip for creating content that your ideal customers actually pay attention to is to just be real and be you, my friend. Okay. Instagram, just in general, people online have a BS monitor or whatever. Like, they can smell BS. Okay. We all know those people who kind of show up online and it just doesn't feel genuine. You know, it feels kind of like fake, or it feels a little too pretty and neat and tidy, or it feels a little too professional, you know, or it just feels like they're glossing over things, you know? And not only does that content, like, it's kind of boring, let's be honest. Like, neat and tidy, pretty content, like too overly professional, using like big words that like, blah, blah, like make your mouth like, I don't know. I always think of it as like your mouth is like overflowing with this word that's too big, and it comes out like the wah wah, like Charlie Brown teacher and stuff. Like, no, okay. content that's too pretty, content that's too professional, content that is kind of like just bullshit, right? It's boring. It doesn't allow your ideal customers to trust you, to get to know you, to like you. It's not memorable, right? And so the more you can just be straight up with your people and be real with them, just state your opinions, state like life as you know it, even admitting like, I've been playing around with this lately. I don't know if it's right yet, but I've been testing it out. Like that sort of stuff is so much more genuine, real, compelling than trying to be like everyone else, trying to be too professional, too pretty, too tidy, all that different stuff, right? So just be as real with your people as possible and be as you as possible. Don't brush things under the rug, just put yourself out there as your authentic self. And that is how you'll create content that your ideal customers actually pay attention to. That is how you will create a brand that stands out online from all the other brands out there that are very similar to yours. That's how you'll be memorable for your people. That's how you'll gain their trust and compel them to choose you and buy from you. Recommend your brand to all their friends instead of going with someone else who's very similar to yours, but not as cool as your brand, right? So those are my 6 tips for creating content that your ideal customers will actually pay attention to, my friend. Remember who you're speaking to always. Make it about them and not about you. Always give value. Head back to episode 115 if you want a value add breakdown. I go into deep detail in that one. Then the 4th tip, pay attention to what they are talking about for content ideas, and then pay attention to the language that they use so that you can spit it back out to them is the 5th tip. And then the 6th tip, just be real. Be you, my friend, because you're beautiful and you are what is going to make your ideal customers trust your brand, make you stand out online, and make them want to buy from you. Okay. I hope that you enjoyed this episode. I know I can get a little bit rambly and share some stories. I hope that all my examples made sense for you. If you did enjoy this episode, don't forget, my friend, share it to your Instagram stories. I would love for you to take a screenshot, slap it on your Instagram stories, and make sure that you tag me at Feel Good Social, because then I can reshare it. Then I can give you a follow. Then I can spread the love right back to you. Okay, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and I will catch you next time I catch you. Thanks so much for listening, my friend. For show notes and a whole lot of other awesome freebies, visit feelgoodsocial.com. Simply go to feelgoodsocial.com for all the goods.